We're all misfits.
All right, you ragtag bunch of misfits.
You're a scrappy little misfit, just like me.
Biggest bunch of misfits I ever set eyes on.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad in the house.
What's up?
Yo. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about coaching at the affiliate level and how that expands out to competitive programming, competitive coaching, and actually competing itself. As always, the best way to support this podcast is by heading to properfuel.co using the code word Misfit on the best supplements in the game. That could be what Hunter's snacking on right there in front of you if you're watching on the YouTubes.
Confirmed.
You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com, use your favorite athlete code, and of course, teammisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs, misfitathletics.com. We are beginning week 2, beginning to get into the meat, if you will. Week 1 is the bun. It's the bottom bun. And we're getting into the meat. And you're going to start to see how much fun it is to work on the things that you just tested. Misfitathletics.com. All right, gents. Before we get into the nitty gritty, what's up?
Nothing. We just got fucking 18 inches of snow around these parts.
Yeah.
Cold.
Fuck,
Yeah,
I just shoveled 3 separate times because mainly at about 8 p.m. on, what was that, Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. Plow truck comes by and builds a wall that is taller than my car at the end of my driveway. And my father-in-law has my snowblower, so it's the old hand shovel, which was delightful. But
then you're in shape.
Kiddo loved going out in the snow and shoveling, which was kind of fun for the first time. He hasn't really been old enough or wasn't a great walker. When last time it snowed, he was like 2 and he was still walking, but he wasn't really good on unfamiliar terrain. And now he's good at walking in the snow. So it was a lot of time spent outdoors, which, could be a lot worse. But fuck that snow.
At least it was light. I don't know if it was light in Westbrook, but
it was the powdery stuff. He was like, make a snowman. I'm like, I can't, dude. This isn't snowman snow. But I think that concept was lost on him.
This isn't snowman snow.
It's not
For the
snowball snow.
listeners, if you're thinking about moving to Maine to hang out with us at Misfits in Portland, it was 7 degrees this morning. It will be 50 degrees overnight tonight. I don't make the fucking rules. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I did all that shoveling, and I'm pretty sure it's going to rain all of the snow away here within the next 24 hours, supposedly.
That would be so sick.
Supposed to
But
happen,
then-
and then it's coming back again.
Then it's going
gonna
back down into the
freeze and it'll
20s.
just
Exactly.
Fucking
Yes.
freeze everything that didn't melt.
Ice luge.
Yep.
Is the season.
Well, I'm headed to Miami this weekend, so if everything freezes and the power turns off, I'm going to be in deep shit with my wife. But, got to go coach at Wadapalooza. You guys know how it is.
It's gonna be tough.
She knows how it is.
That big old bubble in front of the TV, just texting like, "Oh yeah, man, must be so cold up there."
Must be
Excited for
freezing.
that trip, Drew?
Yes, I am excited for the trip. I'm I think setting the stage for what the Austin will be down there on a team as well, but the Misfit team in the elite division on the women's side is Paige Semenza, kind of our steward and team captain for the team this year. Jenna Michelotti, who Sherb's been coaching for a number of years, three-time top 5 CrossFit Games teen athlete. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, 5.
Yeah, the last 3 seasons. And then McKenna Enslin, who is a remote client of mine, that went to semifinals for the first time last year. And the idea of Paige really wanting to usher in the new generation of Misfits in that setting, I don't think people can really wrap their mind around what that is going to do for their development, and then what that is going to mean, or what that could just mean to them on a personal level. I know that Paige and McKenna trained together somewhat regularly, and Paige really wanted to help her out and sort of get her into that atmosphere. And then I know, sure, there were potentially some caps lock exclamation points and emojis
Slightly
that got
excited.
sent to you from Jenna when she was asked to do that. So it's so cool to see from our end. I'm really fucking excited to get down there and experience that with them and help them out there. I think it's a really fun and safe way to be like kicked out of your comfort zone, like absolutely booted in the ass out of your comfort zone, but then land somewhere again that is a little bit more fun than like you qualify for your first elite competition and you feel like you're, walking out there like, I don't know, unclothed with a spotlight on you or something like that. So I'm really excited for that. I can say that this might be the first time that the alternative of like going there and staying home in the winter, normally it's just like I want to snap my fingers and be there and like not be in Maine anymore, but like not being in my routine with my kid for that stretch, like that is actually in the back of my head, and it's the first time that I've felt that way, and it's weird. It's super weird. It's like a totally different mindset. So really excited to get down there with them and dig into the weekend, and then Steelers play at 1 p.m. on Sunday.
How bad are they gonna get beat?
I mean, like, I don't know. There's like what
Pretty bad.
1 to maybe 3 teams in the NFL that dominate regularly.
Yeah, it's true.
The Bills,
You never know.
Bills have
Flip a
played
coin.
horrendous so many times. Like even last weekend against the Dolphins, it was like, how do we get like 500 yards of offense and not score a touchdown? Like they seem to shoot themselves in the foot a lot. So I don't think
love that-
TJ Watt's going to be able to play, and he's probably 60% of the reason why they're in the playoffs. So he's by far their best player.
All I can think of is, you guys have seen this, is that Shane Gillis meme where he like has the gun out at somebody and then points the gun in his mouth and then pulls the gun back out and points at the person again. That is literally Josh Allen. He just decides, I'm either going to make this team awesome or I'm going to fucking take it down myself. So
Yeah.
who's quarterback for the Steelers this week? Is it Pickett? Is it Rudolph?
No.
Is it
No.
is it,
No,
Ben's
Pickett's been healthy for a couple weeks.
is he back
Rudolph,
in?
yeah.
Okay.
There was someone leaked a story that Pickett refused to be his backup, so they kept him on the injury designation, which either was true and forced him to come out and say, "No, I'm a team player, I'll be the backup," or was just total bullshit. But
Got it. He's back.
he's back, but he's number 2.
Got it. Okay.
And Mitch Trubisky, oh how the mighty have fallen, is now the 3rd string quarterback and gets left like on the bus, I think, without putting his shoulder pads on now.
Keep the best one. He's like Mac Jones.
Yeah. He actually might be as bad as Mac Jones. And apparently he's a dick too.
Is he?
Like he has a very aggressive leadership style, but he's not good. So it'd be like if like you watch The Last Dance, Michael Jordan was like choking Steve Kerr and being a dick to everybody and stealing their money in the locker room and averaged like 2 points a game. Like that style of leadership does not work when you suck. Like they asked his teammates, like, what do you think of his leadership style? And I think like another starter was like, it's fine, like in that tone. And then they were like, how would you describe it? And he said, loud.
Perfect. Just what you want.
Yeah. So the 3rd string quarterback's going around the locker room screaming at everybody, and they let him in the game, and he throws a bunch of interceptions and fumbles. So what a guy.
Stud.
Yeah.
Stud.
What a fucking guy. Yep. You guys got nothing else? You want to jump right into it?
No, so I started. I mentioned this to you guys, but really started getting back into the electric guitar recently.
Ooh.
It's a good time. I
Fucking serenade us, kid.
It has also sent me. No, I'm not a singer. Just
Fucking riff real quick.
No, my uncle is a very talented guitar player. He used to play in bands. He played in he showed me a couple videos. He played in front of like 2,000-3,000 people, like legitimately sold, had tickets sold to a show. But he recently got back into it and actually scheduled some studio time and asked if I wanted to play like a rhythm guitar part for him while he plays a lead. So I've been dusting off the electric guitar and like just remembering all the stuff that I learned. That's
Dust
how
the
I
old
started.
axe off.
Dust off the old axe, yeah.
when
That
you
has
play
got
music
me
for the
down
gym.
that has gotten me down a deep rabbit hole on YouTube, because the last time I was really like playing the electric guitar as heavily as I was, like the best place to go was to like a guitar tab website, and that was it. Like YouTube wasn't nearly as big as it is now, where you can like find basically any song you ever want to learn, and there's like 412 videos of people teaching you how to play the song on YouTube. So it's kind of funny it makes you think like how far along like YouTube and technology and whatnot has come in just like the last decade, and the like availability of information, the ability to learn things and like learn how to do things or get better at things. Like, I was thinking about that between golf and like the guitar, two things that you would typically want to find like somebody to teach you how to do. You could fucking learn that on YouTube right quick.
You can fix anything in your house, like and stuff that you would
Yes.
think that like you have to be a fucking PhD, and it's like, well, the guy that shows up that does it is like covered
Has
in
3 PhDs.
It smells like 6. So
No, yeah.
I'm gonna be able to figure this shit out.
That's the bane of my, or not, that's my kryptonite, because I see that I have the same mentality. I'm like who am I about to pay to do this? Like, I'm gonna picture who that person is, and then I'm gonna say to myself, there's no fucking way that I can't figure out how to do it if I'm about to pay this person to
The difference
do it.
is they do it every day. You are trying it for
Yes.
the first time.
Doesn't always work.
fucking
Works,
your way
it
through it.
doesn't always work. To
Yeah,
my
it depends on
advantage.
how far you want to go down that rabbit hole, though. Like, I'm talking like a lot of people wouldn't know how to maybe like restart their boiler or something like that to get the heat going again. There's
Oh,
like
yeah,
super
yeah.
basic things like that where like, or you're like, you've got a bunch of air in your baseboard that you have to like leak out. Like, there's little things like that where it's, you don't want to be paying someone to do it. But like, I go back to we see it out in the gym all the time with the different attributes that coaches have. But I go back to the Einstein quote. It's like, everyone's a genius, just don't ask a fish to climb a tree. Like,
Yeah.
you'll find someone who struggled so much in school, or like maybe it's just literally just a verbal thing. Like they have a disconnection, like they're not a great like communicator. And then you see the way that they are with engines or like electrical shit. And you're just like, oh, holy shit, that's fucking impressive. So the like base level stuff, like anything that a service person's going to come to your house and take care of in an hour, you should be able to do by yourself, and YouTube will help you do that. Now, if you want to like build an addition onto your house and then it like falls over, like it's askew, like that's when you find someone with the genius of like patience that can actually build you something.
It's like trying to schedule a doctor's appointment when you've got a cold. It's like, doc's not going to do anything that you can't do yourself. Like, you'll be fine.
Ride it out.
I actually
broke my
listened
arm.
to-
I got antibiotics from my doctor when I was a kid, so there wasn't any fucking
Did
point
it fix
going
it?
there. I don't know. I don't think so.
I saw a video, and this is one of those, like, I don't know how accurate it is, but it was basically like, if you pick something and you spend between like 15 and 20 minutes a day working on that skill or whatever it is, after like 1 year, you're going to be better at it than like 95% of the population of like the planet. It doesn't take a whole lot to like get above average at sort of things. There's obviously a massive kind of leap from
I
being
crammed those
above
15
average
minutes
and
into like 2
competent.
days,
Right.
personally.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I can do this now. I got this figured out.
I'm now a professional.
The electric guitar is the most fun when you don't know what you're doing, because
Yeah.
like my brother had acoustic, electric, he had bass guitar, like he had all that shit when I was a kid. And like you feel like a moron with a fucking acoustic guitar when there's like you just
Yeah.
do unless you're like 3 years old and you just want to go da-da-da-da-da-da over and
Yeah.
over. But an electric guitar with an amp, like you can make some great noises
You got a little more
with
forgiveness,
no skills.
less skill
It's
required.
way
for
friendlier
more
on the tiny
forgiveness.
hands as well. A lot easier to
Yes.
play an electric guitar than it is an
Yeah.
acoustic guitar in that respect. I can tell you that right
Confirmed.
fucking now.
That is accurate.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about, we have a brand new phase at teammisfits.com of affiliate programming, and I thought this would be a really great opportunity to kind of dig into. People ask us a lot where our knowledge comes from, where these ideas come from that we've fleshed out and gone super deep on within the competitive realm. And to me, if you could think about it like one of the visuals that comes to mind is the iceberg, where like all they see is the iceberg, above the water, and then everything that we learned at the affiliate level and back in the day doing .com workouts all that. To me, I think of like a house. So the big, beautiful house that's sitting on top is, the sport and the CrossFit games and the tip of the spear, and not realizing what sort of foundation and bedrock is underneath. And we tell people that are competing at the highest levels to be students of the game, that part of your athlete IQ is to really have a deep understanding of what it is. And what we're going to talk about today, to me, is like this level of education, this like base knowledge that you have to have if you want to excel in programming, coaching, or competing at a high level.
Yeah, I think we had I had the advantage, and I think Sherb could probably agree the same thing, because agree with the statement that like when I got started coaching, I was like, first off, just pure luck managed to come into CrossFit MF. Like it wasn't the closest gym, and like the literal time of day that I went there was like just happened to be kind of like open gym, middle of the day, not even a class running. And
Drinking
like
chocolate milk.
drinking chocolate milk, smashing 12
Goldfish.
donuts, doing carb backloading. But I like it. I didn't know any better, so I wandered in. It was like, yeah, this place seems cool, and kind of got my start coaching. But it was also really clear that kind of I like culture might not be the best word, because I don't even think it had developed that much yet. It was more just like 2 or 3 really obsessed people about learning how to make people really strong and get people in really good shape. The nuances and the movement progressions and the teaching progressions were still in their, relative infancy. But the difference was that like pretty much everybody who like really enjoyed coaching at MF was spending almost as much time on YouTube or Windows Movie Player, clicking on the like 8-pixel videos of Greg Amundsen doing Fran and Rob Orlando doing one-arm Fran in a fucking dungeon basement. But it was the idea, it was just like, I can't consume enough information to learn about all this stuff. And the other benefit to that being so early on is like, that was still, early YouTube, kind of like not even YouTube and starting to become YouTube time frame. So like the content was it was pretty spread out. Like we were learning things from like Louis Simmons, like the West Side Bar conjugate method type stuff. We were watching a fuckload of the Kelly Starrett videos where he was holding an iPhone in his hand, where his 2-year-old daughter is like running through the frame as he's teaching you how to floss and use a lacrosse ball on your T-spine. It was all of this like super unrefined content, but was being put out by these extremely intelligent, knowledgeable individuals from all kinds of corners of the air, like the space, and most of whom had like started to either were in the CrossFit space or were starting to like see like CrossFit becoming kind of a thing, and we were able to like apply all of that knowledge, like the Cal Strength videos, watching Donnie Schenkel and John North do max out clean and jerks and stuff like that. It was all just like a desire to know like what are the best athletes, what are the best coaches doing to get people strong, to get people fit, to get people competent at gymnastics, to get people in the right positions from a mobility perspective. And it was just like wow, like there's a lot of shit, but this is all ultimately it was all really fascinating to me at least, and I think probably speak for you two as well. And that it was
when I
just
stumbled on
really
.com,
interesting.
you looked at the pictures of the people that are on the site, and outside of some of the cool ones where someone's like swinging a kettlebell on top of a mountain or whatever, you just saw those people and you're like, damn, I want to look like that. Like that was literally how someone convinced me to start doing CrossFit. It's like, you could look like that if you do CrossFit. I'm like, nah, that's sweet. And you start reading the information behind it. You're like, wow, this makes intuitive sense. Like you don't only want to be able to lift really heavy weight if that means you can like do a 20-minute mile run. And you also don't want to be a super fast runner if that means you're weak as shit. Like all those things made intuitive sense to me. And then what was cool about .com is it gave you a tiny dose of what you could learn because it was only a couple of videos or maybe an article every day. Like it was a digestible amount of information where you always wanted to go back to that resource and figure out what's new for the day, whether that's teaching the push jerk or learning about basic nutrition or the value in learning how to use a rowing machine. And because there wasn't a ton of information on there, it sparked my interest to go look elsewhere. So you looked at the authors that posted on .com or that Greg had people post, they share their information there or they sent you to other resources, which was kind of cool about CrossFit in the early days. They claim to be subject matter experts in basically nothing other than the fact that they were able to gather the people who were the experts and say, hey, if you need information on rowing, go see this person. If you want to learn how to use kettlebells, go see this person. If you want to learn how to mobilize, go see this person. And all of a sudden it kind of opened the library up to like what you could potentially learn. And then I think a lot of CrossFit coaches early on gravitated to whatever interested them most, whether that was powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, gymnastics. Maybe you enjoyed the monostructural part of stuff. But I always thought that .com was an interesting resource because it was, it's like a drug dealer being like, here's a little dose. You can go take some more if you want it. And that like, like, oh, fuck, this is great. I want to go find some more. And that's really how, it sort of sparked the interest in me is it taught me just enough where it's like, wow, that's mentally stimulating. And I want to figure out how to do this because I want to look a certain way. And this is, I think, the path forward. And it kind of caused me to go out and learn more about it because I wanted to help myself first. And then I quickly realized that like I got more joy out of helping other people than myself.
There's one other part I want to add too is like we're lucky enough. A lot of this like it's kind of funny when you do some research or if you've ever read Outliers, the book, Malcolm Gladwell's book. A lot of like the success of certain individuals has a tremendous amount to do with the circumstances in which they were just simply like either born into or brought into. Like Bill Gates' success had a lot to do with the fact that he was located in one of the few areas of the world that had like access to like extremely fast computers, for example. That just random happenstance like that. We all got into CrossFit at a time when it was still in its infancy enough that like I've read maybe every journal article, probably up to a certain point, maybe not, but I've read most of the CrossFit Journal at least once, a second time when I was studying for my L3, and like consuming all of that like extremely foundational information. Like that's it. Like that's the Bible. Like that's the CrossFit Journal is the equivalent of the Bible when it comes to like kind of the original texts, so to speak. And I think like we had the benefit at least, and I know Sherb is like equally as interested in that sort of stuff, like CrossFit Journal, OG affiliate level type stuff, and like the methodology and a lot of the Glassman articles. But like being in a time and place when that was like where the foundational information was and like we actually read it, that's a huge like I don't think most affiliate coaches nowadays maybe have ever visited the CrossFit Journal. Like if you're just getting your L1 for the first time in 2024, there's a reasonable chance that you've never opened the CrossFit Journal, and maybe you won't. Maybe you'll glance over some articles that are there, but compared to folks like me, Sherb, Drew, who have been, in the game for as long as we have, it's like that was part of the original content that we were consuming, and that also happens to be like kind of the foundational elements of CrossFit and understanding like at its core how the program works and like why it works and how to make it as effective as it can be.
Well, that's why I don't give you guys prompts before the podcast anymore. You got to let the chuckleheads cook. You guys opened up the entire episode without me sharing it because I know how you guys feel about this stuff. And I know that if I just poke just a little bit, I'm going to get that sort of response. And Hunter, because you referenced the coach specifically, to me, it's like You have this opportunity to see the most amazing picturesque landscape, and you're looking through a paper towel holder roll with one eye. Like, oh, that's a nice spot over here. That's a nice spot over there. There's something magical about broadening your horizons, and you don't have to agree with absolutely everything that you're reading, but perspective is how you end up with that like spidey sense intuition out on those rubber mats that we talk about all the time with our coaches. We get a new coach, super gung-ho, has read a lot of stuff, but wants to know the very specific order of the way that you coach this thing, and taking that full step back, opening up your perspective and realizing that there's just this level of intuition, and you are going to see something that is nuanced enough that it's different in a way that you haven't seen before, and you might have to come up with something new to say to someone, or they struggle with the cue itself and you got to come up with a different one. And again, when you do read these things, when you do make this part of your history and or your education, that's when as a coach you are going to be able to spawn your own new ideas that you did not read in a book. You're going to be able to watch a really complex movement and only stare at someone's feet, or only stare at their hips, or like, wow, everything looks good, but turns out they're, doing the motorcycle grip on the pull-up bar. Like, there are just pieces to this puzzle that we're always trying to put together out there while we're coaching that you're never going to figure out until you like just completely open up to all of the information that you could have. And that's one of the notes that I made, is like, you will not reach where you want to be as a coach, programmer, or athlete without what we're talking about today being part of your history, or saying to yourself, it's not part of my history. I should like tune in and educate myself on what this stuff looks like.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead. Sure.
I was just saying the educational component, is something that I've found working to develop the coaches in Wyndham ends up being probably the foundation for everything else that I could teach them. And recently I gave them, we did one of those type form surveys for the members for like, tell us how the gym is doing. We want to get your feedback so we can continue to make the place better. And I recently created a similar survey for the coaches and basically asked them how they felt with the 6 kind of different domains of coaching, teaching, seeing, correcting, cueing, all that stuff. And then asked them, how their level of comfort with coaching Olympic lifts versus power lifts versus gymnastics and nutrition. And I got feedback from the coaches at a level that, I think when we meet, which is going to be in about 10 days, that I'm going to be polite and basically say, I don't think we're focusing on the right things here. People are concerned about learning how to teach, the higher level movements like bar muscle ups and handstand walking. And it's like, I think we can work better at developing how to air squat better, and how to get a good push up in class. And, what should a proper Olympic, overhead grip look like in a snatch? And the reason why I think that way versus the way they think that way is that like they think the athletes are really honing in on getting really good at those movements, where it's like as coaches we need to be like super foundational in the basics of all that movement, because it crosses over to everything else. And the reason I know that is because I've put myself in the experience where I've really dug into like research on, I've read the journal, like you said, Hunter, a few times to think about like what's important here. And when you correct the foundational basic stuff, it trickles down to the more complex stuff. And one of the main faults that I think any athlete or coach has is they want to skip ahead to the high level stuff without getting really familiar and comfortable with the nitty gritty. It's like once you feel like you've mastered everything, like start over again, go back to the basics. I think for a lot of coaches, they get enough information to level 1, they can start to be dangerous enough to like get in class and start giving some information. But then they're like, that's sort of good enough. And they never go back and go, all right, like, how can I get everybody in class to air squat better? Like how can we go back around to that? And I think that's one of the things that has to be in the coach's tool belt of like realizing that they have to go back to that starting step again. And the same goes for an athlete. You feel like you've mastered the clean and jerk and you hit that goal you've had for a long time of 350 pounds. But if you'd gone back and figured out why your air squat could be better, or why your first pull could be better, or like get obsessed with the nuances of things, if you retool again, you could probably take that 350 and turn it into a 365. So I really just think a lot of that just comes back to education. Like you have to go back and be willing to start over. And when you feel like you've mastered something, restart again and figure out what you haven't learned.
And we learn that through, like you're explaining, that's a house of cards. That's what that is in fitness. You get into like so many people, like myself personally, a lot of the reason I got into CrossFit was the competitive side of it, personally wanting to be a competitor at a time when local competitions wanted to put on a show where you're doing pistols and muscle ups and heavy squat cleans and things of that nature. So you hone in on that thing and you just keep stacking those cards up, and then 11.1 shows up and it's 95-pound power snatch and double under, and you need to be fit.
Don't need muscle ups
and
or
honestly, but
225
like
squat
those sorts of things happening, like that's why going through these moments and these ebbs and flows as an athlete, as a coach, as a programmer, it can really create a level of clarity where it's like the point of this entire episode is this idea of why does a program that is centered around rotating through variance within lifts and hitting the skill pieces and doing conditioning and then filtering all the way down to being able to crush an open workout, like when it feels simpler, why does it also feel it's like it's going to be more effective? Like we break ourselves back down to where we started and go over these concepts with the information that we've gathered over however many years, and that's what ends up within the program.
There's another component to kind of the foundational aspect, like so Sherb talked about kind of the foundational movement aspect, whether it's the literal 9 foundational movements or just like having a baseline understanding of those like fundamental movements. I think there's also, and maybe even more so just because it's a little bit more ethereal and like there's more reading, I guess, involved, more research involved, but the methodology itself, I think, is super important and often gets lost on affiliate coaches or even competitive coaches. And it's like, why I had an athlete last night actually who for affiliate athletes we did the double dumbbell box step over and chest to bar pull-up workout. Pretty spicy workout. This guy's got 50 pounds. He's a relative beginner, bigger dude, bigger like as in just like he's probably like 6'3", like 225, 230, like a stout guy. And he's got 50-pound dumbbells and he's got his box tipped to the 20-inch side. And I was like, hey man, I want you to go grab 40-pound dumbbells and we're going to tip this box up to the 24-inch side. And it's a super small thing, and like he would have absolutely gotten a good workout in the other scenario. After I told him to do that, he was resting in one of the intervals, and I was like, the way that I told him, I was just like, here, this will make the workout more fun. And I tipped the box up for him, and all of a sudden it got a little harder, and I was like, hey man, but just so you know, I'm not fucking with you. The reason for that is like, I want a slightly longer range of motion here, a little bit, basically like with the foundational idea that you are going to mathematically do more work and therefore increase your work capacity. He doesn't need to know that. I don't need to break down force equal or, work. Oh, fuck. I'm going to fuck up my math.
Perfect.
Here.
That was excellent.
Power, force times distance over time. Like, I don't need to explain that to him, but I know that by increasing that range of motion 4 inches on each step and pulling the dumbbell weight down just a little bit, that change in his workout is going to, like, again, stacked workout after workout, week after week, month after month, is actually going to make an improvement. We're going to increase his like range of motion. We're going to increase his strength through a deeper like lunge squat position. And ultimately, like, that's what we want, right? I want somebody who's able to squat through their full capacity range of motion and be strong throughout that range of motion, because ultimately that is A, work capacity, and B, health, like as defined by CrossFit. And that's really one of the reasons like I got interested in it as I did, is because Glassman was able to apply an objective mathematical definition of fitness and health and work capacity to an industry that didn't have that, right? It was like who's the fittest
Fitness is
person on
fitness.
earth? Who's the fittest person on earth? It's like, well, every running magazine is going to say the person who has the fastest marathon time in the world, or the elite endurance runner, is the fittest person on earth. And like, you don't have, that's an extraordinarily subjective thing, because that person probably also has a 10-inch vertical at most, and is probably not going to be able to pick their own body weight up off the floor. And it's like, there's a disparity here. How do we define objectively what fitness is, what health is, and how we get people fitter? And that's a huge part of the reason that I like, because I like the numbers, I like the analytical side, I like kind of a black and white, like objective measurement technique, just being kind of like having an engineering background. And I think just having that knowledge as a coach enables you to apply that to your athletes, even if they don't have the depth of knowledge that you do. You are pointing them in the right direction because you have that foundational knowledge at hand.
Yeah, when I think of I'm going to begin the conversation about the programming sort of at the end. So every Friday on the Team Misfit affiliate program, there's going to be an open workout or an open style workout that we have programmed. And that is the end of the conversation. Execution in a workout like that, from a scaled version of someone who's just started at your gym to you have to go through the open to get to the CrossFit Games. So it's the full spectrum. Executing within that workout in terms of your fitness level and your pacing and your skill level and your ability to move a barbell and probably go through more of like a monostructural movement. That is the end goal of what we are building here. And I think when you take, again, our principles and our foundation that we have gotten from CrossFit, the actual methodology and entity, and then mix it with the things that we have learned over the years, you end up with the kind of program where you can be led through, again, you don't know it as the athlete, but you're being led through this idea of, like, let's say we'll choose a traditional 15 to 20 minutes, and it's a triplet. It's got monostructural weightlifting and gymnastics in it, the CrossFit MWG. I believe that an athlete needs the opportunity to have those things broken out on their own as part of what they're doing to end up at that end goal. So we need monostructural conditioning as a staple of the program. We need weightlifting, like true weightlifting, like a real weightlifting warm-up, coached properly, like someone's got an eye on you, what you're doing, like a real 1 hour top to bottom weightlifting session. We also need gymnastics to be pulled out. We need gymnastics to be pulled out and have enough space around them with time involved for a coach to help you get to the point where you're actually figuring out how to do this movement. Then that next step is, what are some low stakes versions of doing these things together? That's where you enter into more of what we would consider a cardio day. You could literally have like we had a low dose chest to bar pull up into step overs. We've got some workouts. I know there's one with like a sumo deadlift high pull and maybe like double unders or something like that. Like, we're talking about, okay, at some point we've rotated through, you've done your weightlifting on its own, you've done your monostructural on its own, you've done your gymnastics on its own. Now, what workout could combine some of those elements and still let almost everyone play? And as we make our way through something like this and we continue to rotate through it, the largest amount of people are going to have the opportunity to go in and find out during the open, like, am I the 10,000th fittest person on earth? 5,000, 1,000, 100? Am I the fittest person on earth? That sort of thing. It's all being tested by the same people that are all doing a variation of what I just talked about, just at, different, the weights are heavier, the monostructural is faster, the sets are bigger in the gymnastics. And again, that's how we end up being informed about how to create the best athlete with the same principles of, how do I get an entire affiliate better just at the CrossFit Open?
All right, I'll jump in. I think
You guys are waiting for
I
each
don't know
other
if
now.
I was,
I like
I was
it.
going.
So
I
patient.
think I think what's unique about our programming as opposed to how we started CrossFit is that a lot of us take what we have in our affiliate programming now and fucked around with it ourselves as athletes coming up to be like, man, this workout was, I don't know, let's just pick a fucking crazy one of those hero workouts. I think it's called like Ryan. It's like got 25 muscle ups at the end of 3 rounds. Or like, how many fucking hours is this workout going to take us? Well, we were dumb enough early on to be like, all right, I'm going to fucking stand here until I'm done. And it's going to be a 90 to 2 hour odyssey, 90-minute 2 hour odyssey right now of fucking figuring out how to get these muscle ups. And then because we were annoyed by that, we would go separately outside of that session and play with muscle ups. And then we quickly realized like, hey, maybe it's not the best fucking idea to practice these when have already done an 800-meter run and like air squats or whatever the hell is in that workout. I honestly don't remember. So please forgive me for not getting the logistics exactly right on that workout. But we have this ungodly amount of reps or this super heavy weight. And we quickly realized that like, on our own, we taught ourselves how to do those things with separate sessions that allowed us to focus on that one single thing. Now, the problem with a lot of the, cookie cutter CrossFit programs is they'll just say, all right, here's the movement. And here's one drill you can work on today inside of this, in this warm up before you go into your workout. And for a lot of athletes, that's not enough time and enough practice to actually improve said movement. And you have gyms that are like, yeah, Bob's been coming to this CrossFit gym for 9 years. He still can't do a kipping pull-up. He's never been upside down, and he doesn't know how to squat clean. It's like, God damn, what are we doing here? We need to have opportunities for athletes to practice these things in isolation so they get better at it. So one of the things I've always been proud about us when we program workouts is that we have those sessions built in. We have things that are figuring out how to get athletes midline stronger through, isometric holds like the GHD hold and L sits and things of that nature, or handstand holds. And then we also have things that are like, all right, we're going to spend the entire session today refining the ring dip and the pull up. And we're going to spend 40 minutes doing that. And then we'll knock out a quick little couple at the end of class to make sure everyone got, a little aerobic dose in the end of class. But at the same time, we spent the requisite amount of time inside of a class to give some sort of value there so that athletes basically have the breadcrumbs on the trail of how can they get better at these movements. And I think that's often a lost art. When you go back, and we've been quoting Glassman a lot here, but like when you're just describing a CrossFit class, he's like, it's a good warm up. It's a figure out a new gymnastics skill or pursue a 1 rep max in a lift. And I think he was just using that generally speaking, like go heavy for a lift and then knock out a quick couplet and play a game and then see you next time. And what he was really doing there, it feels like an afterthought for a lot of people. Like, oh yeah, cool, you said that, whatever. If that was your general format for a lot of your classes, and that's really what you honed in on, was really diving into a skill and how to learn it, or pursuing a weightlifting movement and trying to figure out what you can do for 3 for the day, and then occasionally adding a little bit of breathing heavy at the end of class, that would be a phenomenal CrossFit class for 90%. But I think people get lost in the sauce of like, we got to lift into a Metcon every single day. And because we got both of those things in there and we're trying to jam a warm up in and everything else, that everything gets done at like a 70% like efficiency rate, and people are stagnant forever. So I think the take-home message here is like, you need to spend time teaching stuff, and that is the separation between the affiliates that someone walks in the door and is like, wow, this place is way different, than the just like, hey, yeah, I took a CrossFit class there, it was great.
Taking your medicine is not the same. Not everyone thinks the medicine is the same thing. So if we rewind back to when we spoke about intensity, and like intensity is like Fran, and then you punch yourself in the face and see if you can draw blood. Like that's the 2009 version of what intensity means.
All right, I'll add it to the programming.
And then the idea of taking your medicine was always once a week you are going to put yourself in a place on something like an assault bike. There's this place you don't want to go, this territory that you don't want to go to. We need every single, there's enough athletes out in that gym that don't want to do a heavy day, that don't want to do a gymnastics day, that don't want to do rowing intervals, that don't want to do a couplet, a triplet, a long thing, a short thing. Like, if you have enough people on your program, them taking their medicine is going to be a completely different brand for each individual person. And it is our job to give them the medicine so that when they do show up 2 years later and they have that skill, where it was a skill only day and they wanted to go complain to their little group of friends, like, can you believe all we did was push-ups and whatever today? And it's like, 2 years later, it's like, you're fucking welcome. And we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to continue to make people do that because that's how they end up in the place where they want to be. We have to make some decisions. We have to sacrifice one single day over the course of like 15 days, 15 classes, so that you can finally get the ability to learn how to move your body in space when your heart rate's not at 180.
Well, you just like unintentionally, or I mean intentionally, touched on like one of like the core kind of aspects or tenets of what makes the program as effective as it does. And you did too, Sherb, which I'll just tie it together, is that like you're not supposed to beat yourself into the ground every single day. We're not going to lift and Metcon every day. We're not going to just bike sprint every day until your lungs bleed. And we're not going to just lift until you have a 500-pound deadlift, a 400-pound squat, and a 300-pound bench press, because that is not the low trajectory to a distant horizon. That is not the path to long-term fitness and health. That is a short-term, I'm obsessed with this thing right this minute, and I want to get as good as I can right this second, and to hell with like what my long-term potential is in this, you know, with respect to my own health, fitness, or my competitive desires. We get a lot of folks, I think that, you know, I was looking over some of the survey results, and we always ask questions about, you know, do you like the programming in various ways, but anytime that I see feedback where someone's like, I don't like my lift only days, I wish we would do a lift and a Metcon, or I really don't like the gymnastics only days. When I have feedback that's spread out over different styles of class, I know we're doing it right, because that means like because not everybody's going to love every single class, and that's fine. Like there are plenty of classes that I don't like I like workouts that I'm like, nah, that's not my wheelhouse. I don't like it. I don't like how it looks. I don't like how it smells. I'm going to go do my own thing. Yesterday. Yeah. But
Yesterday was
the point
awesome.
is,
in the
it
wrong
was a
way,
good workout.
We did get a message
But
from one
the
of our
point is
affiliates
that like
commenting about yesterday.
Really?
What's that?
Yeah. I said we did get a comment from one of our affiliates commenting about yesterday's workout. They said
I
it
was
really
like,
hard, but
I
we're
didn't
loving
do
it.
the exact same workout, but I was able to, I think, match the stimulus pretty well, and it turned on me so much sooner than I expected, even with proper pacing. Like it's the Denny Green. They are who we thought they were. It was not what I thought it was. Like I was like, oh boy, okay, here we go. I only have 16 more minutes of this.
But yeah, to wrap up the thought, it's that like I want the program where, yes, there are going to be some days where you come in and you're like, like I could in theory do more because I didn't tap myself so badly that I can't move, or that I can't like see straight, or that I'm walking out of the gym walking sideways because my legs are smoked. Like we do want those days occasionally, because that overreaching a little bit and the intensity, and you know, insert all kinds of buzzwords here, but like we also need a program where you can come in and do for the next 10 years. Like I'm trying to set you up to be able to do this for a very long time. I think that's a huge difference in CrossFit compared to like if you're somebody who wants personal training and you go to a commercial gym and you go to a personal trainer and you're like, I want to get better at this. It's like, okay, that person will probably be able to write you a 6 to 12 week program, maybe 16-week program, how to get better at that. And then what do you do? It's like, I don't know, I'll do something different. It's like, that's not the point. Like CrossFit is trying to get you fit for life. And
do you know why we do what we do? Because we fucking know better. We've seen what happens and what works. Like if you placated to someone's desire to do a certain type of class, those athletes would continue to get better at that, whatever that thing is. Better at weightlifting, better at gymnastics, better at cardio, at the expense of other things. And the proof is in the pudding. So like what was really interesting for me this past weekend is at Sweaty Saturday, our free class that we do on Saturdays to invite the public in, is you have, you know, a mixed bag. You have mostly your members, but you get those members to bring friends in, and you get, you know, 5, 10, 15 brand new people in there. And last week we were busy. We had like 55 people in that class. So tiny closet of a gym, 55 people in it. So you're a limited roster of what you can and can't do. So I said, you know what? We're going to do a good old fashioned, like, bitch gymnastics piece. We're basically going to do some machine work, and after each round, so you don't feel like you just did machines the whole time there, I'm going to let you pick a gymnastics movement. That can be a handstand push-up, it can be a ring dip, or it can be a push-up. And, you know, the important part isn't that the workout was, you know, somewhat creative. The important part is I look around the room, and our members, there's members who I know for a fact gave me feedback they fucking hated gymnastics day. I look over and they're doing perfect fucking push-ups. They're doing excellent goddamn push-ups. And you have the bros in the corner who came in like, CrossFit's for fucking pussies. And they're over there half humping the floor and they're not even doing push-ups. And I'm like, you know what? They don't need to know that's wrong. If they ever come to me for ask for help, I'll help them. But like, that is fucking cool. And what's really cool about that is that they got good at something they maybe didn't want to do initially, but now they're really good at it and they're getting feedback. They're getting better at it. And what it really equates to is a better quality of life outside the gym. And every single person that got better at push-ups now has an easier life outside the gym because they chose to get better at something they weren't good at. They got better at life because they got better at push-ups. So it's our job, because we know better, to continue to put these things in the programming, even if it's not your favorite day, because if we only did your favorite day, you'd probably get a lot fucking worse than better. And
Program
our job
would
is to make
suck.
you better. I mean, yeah.
So
We deadlift
just
every
get
day.
better
also-
at push-ups.
We
and
also
you'll be better at
know.
life.
Yes.
We also
Actually,
know
Ted, yes.
better
That on a t-shirt.
because we tried that fucking idea. Like, no one's gonna come to us
yeah.
and say, "Hear me out. You do Fran every day until you get better at it." Like, we've gone through
NickBrown.com?
the iteration. We've
Whoa,
gone through
man.
throwback. We've gone through the iteration to know what does and doesn't work, and it doesn't like. We don't need the wow factor every single day because that's what the coach brings to the class. And in a different class, it's a different wow factor. Like, if the workout itself really does have it, you don't need to put on some kind of show because there's that buzz in the room, especially if it's like a class later in the day and everyone's already
Friday.
commented like you guys are going to die. But on other days, it's bringing a level of enthusiasm to something like this. And I think because so what you guys were explaining to me is like the definition of insanity, right? So if the only thing that you do every time something goes wrong is you completely overcorrect within your program and go towards a single modality and it never works, then that's the definition of insanity. You keep trying the same thing over and over, you keep failing, you keep trying it anyways. But people think because, well, I haven't done it with front squats only yet, or I haven't only done rowing yet, or I haven't done this yet, then this variation of the exact same fucking thing that never works for anybody is going to work. And like, we find those things by, we go in and we do a bias for something and we realize that at the affiliate level, you know, we get like 4 chances a week with someone, and like for it to be an appropriate class, maybe 2 of those have 2 pieces in them. So if we're biasing something, we got to be careful with what does that mean at this actual level. And I'm going to ask you guys a question, and there is a very CrossFit Larry answer to it,
Got you.
but it might be too vague. So high CNS Lift Day is a lift-only day within the programming where you are going to lift heavy within deadlift, squat clean, back squat, overhead squat, front squat, clean and jerk. If you are lifting heavy and you are doing all of those lifts, what are you doing?
I mean, the number one thing I'd say you're doing for yourself is you're trying to get that neuroendocrine response that allows you to, you know, develop stronger bones, develop more muscle mass.
Hunter, do you have a tagline answer?
No,
right, let's see what we got.
let him cook. Go ahead, Sherb.
I mean,
got an answer
basically
after.
get all the things of a functional movement that is desirable, and the reason why we do them to begin with. They are all functional movements that translate to your real life, and whether you know it or not, like I had this conversation with someone like a while back, and I was like, hey, if you go to this gym, you're going to learn how to snatch. And they're like, I don't snatch. And I'm like, well, then you don't fucking go here if you're not going to try. And they're like, whoa, what do you mean? I still want to come here. I'll just clean. I'm like, clean doesn't put your fucking arms over your head. When you're 80 years old, you want to be able to put your arms over your head. Yes. And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like the answer is yes, motherfucker. You want to put your arms over your head when you're 80. Don't come at me with that nonsense. And I said, for a long time, it's going to be very difficult. But if you continue to stay with it, you'll have fully functioning shoulders and arms. And think about, you know, your grandparents who need help putting things over their head. Like, you don't want to be that person, do you? And they're like, No. I'm like, well, then you fucking answer your question. You're going to go and do a snatch, not because I want you to be the best at snatching. It's because I want you to use your body to the fullest expression it should be able to do. So when I ask you to do these things, it's not for my own like twisted self-enjoyment here. It's because I care about you and I want you to be able to do these things.
I mean, you're getting strong.
But is it still constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity?
Yeah, of course.
If it's a rotation of different lifts, they're all functional. You're asking them to lift heavy, like.
Yeah,
I think people get really messed up in what that means, especially the high intensity part.
Yeah, intense, like, again, coaching knowledge here, like intensity is power. Okay, going CrossFit Larry here. Intensity and power for our purposes are the exact same thing. Force times distance over time. We apply a very heavy load, we move it a long distance, and we do it quickly. All of those lifts allow us to do that. It does it in a different way. I don't necessarily want you to get a higher 1 rep max clean and jerk with 1 day of clean and jerk over the next 7 weeks. I don't necessarily expect you to PR your back squat when we go heavy, but the cumulative effort and intensity that gets put into those training days, assuming the coach is able to communicate that correctly and say, hey, if you want to get the most out of this day, heavy needs to be heavy. Now, heavy is obviously relative to the individual, but like we get a lot of folks who on the heavy day, it's like, it looks kind of heavy. It's like, it looks comfortable for you. And then we get a coach who comes around and says like, go away. And you put 30 extra pounds on the bar and somebody's like, picks it up off the floor and it's successful and it looks and it's safe, but it's like it's very clear that was a different lift than the lifts that you were doing before. And that's where the coach is like, congratulations, that was heavy. Now you're going to do that 7x1 more times. Ultimately, like what we're after with that high CNS day is the stimulus of what Sherb said, that extremely high neuroendocrine response. We're actually making changes to the person at the cellular level if, assuming the coach is able to communicate and the athlete accepts and follows the instruction of, okay, this needs to be heavy. And maybe it is a maximal sort of day for me, but when you only do that once per week, or if you're an athlete who maybe you miss a day here and then you miss next week's accidentally as well, it's like if you're only getting one of those days every 2 weeks or so, which is fine, like maybe not optimal, but that's perfectly fine. We need to communicate that like this day, don't come to me if you're an athlete or a coach and you come to me and say like this 7x1 deadlift is like, is that all we're doing in class? Like, holy fuck, you got to go back to that CrossFit Journal. Like that is one of the probably most irritating conversations I have or hear is like, it's 5x5 back squat. Is that all? Like, it'd be really cool if we had a conditioning piece to finish. And I'm like, holy
yeah, we do. It's 5x5 back squat. You're welcome.
We're missing. Yeah, we're missing the mark, and I'm gonna put that on the coach. Like that is a lack of knowledge, and whether it's improper education from a more senior coach or just a lack of maybe just ignorance, like through no fault of their own, but a lack of understanding of how the methodology works, why it works, and what it actually means to, for example, run and execute a heavy day. And there's plenty of nuanced ways to modify that for somebody who's new, a beginner, somebody who's old, somebody who's injured, whatever. But we can still, like, you would be hard pressed to find an individual that I would not be able to provide a heavy day stimulus for and make the adaptation that we want for that 1 hour class.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sales pitch that could be watered down a little and delivered to members with the level of enthusiasm that you just talked about that with. And that is a part of how to execute on that day. Like if you're so wrapped up in perfect squat technique, perfect Olympic weightlifting technique, that sort of thing, and you're reading on the board and it's like, okay, today we have deadlift and we go from a set of 5 to a set of 3. Then we're going to do some singles. We're hoping you guys end up 80% whatever. Everyone go hop on a machine. Like, is that the way that you present a day where you're trying to like bomb your central nervous system? No. Like trickles all the way down from like what you're bringing to the class, both from an information and an energy and enthusiasm perspective, into like how they're going to execute on the lift. And then obviously in turn, if that enthusiasm and intention is there, then that is how it's actually transformed down to the cellular level and there are actual changes made. But you could take the perfect program and present it in a way that it's just not going to be understood what you guys are trying to get the classes to do. And then that's when it's like, okay, these are words in a spreadsheet or on an app somewhere. And there needs to be like a serious level of translation from the page to your class.
Well, like how often have you ever done, either you or a friend, you go into open gym and you do the class workout and you do it together and you finish and you look at the whiteboard and your scores are nowhere near other folks, or it just like, wow, why was so-and-so rolling around on the floor writhing in pain after that? And I just finished my workout and I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. It's like, or you have you're in a garage gym and you train by yourself. And then the first day you come back into affiliate, the workout would otherwise looks like unimaginative and not all that exciting, but the intensity that comes with the coach presenting it in a way that like, hey, this is how you need to execute this workout in order to get the adaptation that we want. And then you also have your peers who are there to hold you accountable to those instructions, oftentimes whether you wanted to be held to those standards or not. And all of a sudden you find yourself going to that place, lifting 10, 20 pounds heavier than you were actually planning to. And like, that's where the adaptation occurs. It's like, you can have the most beautifully written, balanced program, and if you're executing it by yourself in your garage at 70% intensity, it's like, it doesn't fucking matter how good the program is. It's not being executed correctly, either because the athlete isn't executing in the way, or more often the coach is not able to communicate in a way with an understanding of like what this workout is and how it's supposed to be executed in order to get the adaptation that you want.
You just gave a PSA for anyone who doesn't understand how to execute on a CrossFit workout or wonders why, if they're a lone wolf who follows maybe Misfit Athletics and hasn't been in a class in a really long time and maybe thinks they know what they're doing, but maybe doesn't have a perfect grasp on what that actually is. Take some medicine, go back to affiliate class and go learn what it's like to be coached and pushed and have that environment where you know the intent and the coach lays that out for you, directly. And when that happens, you can then go in and fucking see what you're actually made of when you approach a workout the way that's meant to be done, and then realize, holy fuck, I did that one single class workout and it absolutely smoked me. I guess that's time for me to get some more intensity in my life. And maybe I got to dial some things back for a little while and really hammer one or two things really, really well and then see what it does for my fitness. And I think that's kind of the journey that we're on now, Hunter, is that we originally were one workout a day on .com, and then we found Misfit Athletics and we started doing that, and it was 19 pieces a day. And while it helped us get fit, it probably wasn't the most efficient path to get there. And now you and I basically just take affiliate class here, 3 to 5 days a week, depending on the week, and get our asses handed to us, but like as fit probably as we've ever been when it comes down to the full fitness package. Maybe not the heaviest snatches and clean and jerks we ever had, but generally speaking are more well-rounded in our fitness than, speak for myself here, but that I've probably ever been. Yeah, I lose some, seconds off my 2K split or maybe a couple pounds off the snatch, but generally speaking, I'm much better at everything as a full package than I ever have been previously. And that's because I go to class, I understand the intent, and I aim to hit the intent as much of my effort as I can.
Yeah, just the peaks come less frequently, but the valleys aren't as low as they, the valleys aren't as low as they, continue to rise a little bit, and the peaks just don't happen as often. Like today, like deadlifting today, like being within, 5% of my all-time best on like a random Tuesday with what was it, 8 total working sets, 7 total working sets, like that's pretty fucking good. And like to be able to do that like month after month, year after year, and just be consistent enough, it like builds that foundation to be able to. I was gonna actually just chime in and say the same thing. Like part of what allows us to like kind of hang our hats on like maybe there is a day you train a little bit more because you have slightly different goals than I do. But even on the days where you do only get the one training piece, you've done it. you're able to look at a workout and say to yourself, like, okay, I know how this is supposed to be executed. I know what's going to happen if I go too fast. I know what's going to happen if I go too slow. I know what I need to do to get either the best score possible or the best training stimulus for what I need to work on. And then you can execute it. And oftentimes it's just that one training piece is enough. Like yesterday's was a perfect example. After I talked to you about how you did you were like, yeah, I did all my chest to bar pull-ups unbroken. I did the first 3 rounds of step overs unbroken, but I really quickly realized that was a bad idea. And I was like, okay, like I know what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do chest to bar pull-ups unbroken. That'll be something that's good for me because it's not a movement that I love. And I'm going to deliberately break up my step overs and have a disciplined rest period when I pick them back up. And like, just that the knowledge, the time of the number of workouts that I've done, the consistency over a decade of doing CrossFit allowed me to get like, if I could extract 100% benefit out of that workout, I'm able to pull out 90% plus most days just because I've paid enough attention. It's obviously a benefit to being a coach and having that additional knowledge, but anybody can get there. Like all of the information that I used to get where I were and you used to get where you are and Drew to where you are is like open source available on the internet somewhere. And
pay attention.
I know that's a broad statement, but like the information is out there and you can get to that point. It's just a matter of whether like how far a coach is able to dig down that rabbit hole and then pass along to the athlete. And then for an athlete, and if you're a competitive athlete, like how much of that, if there's 100% potential in this workout, like how close to 100% are you able to extract out of that due to being a student of the game, your own personal knowledge and history, and like your understanding of like the methodology as a whole?
So we've covered weightlifting, the W. We'll move on to the G. We're going on to gymnastics. And essentially what you'll see inside of the programming is either what I would call, for honestly lack of a better name, gymnastic strength, where just like you would in a traditional CrossFit class that had a lift and a Metcon, your lift is gymnastics. You're doing however many sets of, let's say, toes to bar. And then the other days are gymnastics only days, where we're taking that same concept that we talked about with the lifting and we're putting it into gymnastics. And this is medicine for a lot of people. But the great thing about developing the right culture at your gym is the member's going to show up and, like open their mouth and Hunter's going to spoon the medicine down in. And I had a different analogy that would have sounded way worse.
No, you should tell us that one now.
Yeah, I like that one.
Well, my son is teething and we're, doing the Motrin and the syringe. So, I was going to say Hunter's going to squirt the medicine into your mouth, but that doesn't quite.
Yeah, Hunter.
Yeah.
That isn't quite what I was searching for. Anyways, so with the gymnastics, that's just another one where the correlation to the highest level is so apparent to me. When anybody comes to me and tries to get better at gymnastics, I am obsessed with knowing what the component parts of that movement is and then where that breaks down for an athlete. And the crazy thing is you could take someone who can do 50 toes to bar in a row, who should be able to do 70 toes to bar in a row, but they don't do this one piece of the puzzle. Surprise, surprise, we go out into the gym, we take the time to teach these movements leading into the gymnastics strength session. And an athlete is working on the exact same progressions as someone who flies halfway across the world to come to our gym and have us break down their movement. It is the exact same principles within these movements. And if you know that as a coach, then you can go in and deliver an amazing class and an amazing gymnastics session to the entire spectrum of skill levels. Like, there isn't going to be anyone out there where we can't nitpick. Like we're always looking for that trajectory. We always want to get incrementally better, and there is something to it. And like you could use something as simple as the toes to bar, and it looks absolutely perfect, but you can tell that there's something going on with the grip, or there's some sort of limiter there with the hip flexors, and we might need to get creative in what we tell them to do for maybe extra work or something like that. But it is all the same basic principles for all of these movements. And the cool thing is there's a starting point for all of them. 99 out of 100 that walk into the gym can kip on the rings or get into either a handstand hold or one where they're up off the box. We have a starting point that is the foundation of the movement itself. And like you're going to continue to progress. And then once you get yourself to a point where you can do high rep, then it's going to be like, okay, well, what happens again? Heart rate's back in the 170s. What does that movement look like now? We ran interference with a barbell or a rower or whatever. What happens now? But the cool thing is, again, it's the same idea across the whole spectrum. Every single person that we work with.
Yeah, I taught that class you referred to earlier, Drew, the chest to bar pull-up and the step overs. And I said, all right, guys, I'm going to break your fucking minds real quick. Let's teach you some kip and pull-ups. Everybody hop up. Everyone hops up. Hop down. All right, here's the drill. I want you to put your knuckles on top and your hands wider than your shoulders. There's your coaching. Until you can figure that out and that's consistent, it doesn't pay for me to teach you anything else about the pull-up. And I said, all right, now everyone do that. And everyone hopped up and they held onto the bar and they're like, wow, that feels different. I'm like, good. Different is better. Different is growth. Different is the direction we're trying to create, because the way that you're doing it currently isn't getting you to where you want to be, right? And that's the challenge that I'm always going to throw in your direction. You're going to always typically tell me that when I make a change, that at first it doesn't feel great. Of course, there are going to be some athletes who go, that feels a little better now, and that's great. But for a lot of athletes, this feels off, or this feels hard, or this feels different. And I'm like, and they come to me as if I'm going to be like, oh, no, I'm sorry. Go back to what you were doing. That was the right way before. And very, very rarely does that ever happen. I'm like, sorry, no.
Would be the greatest thing to say as a coach.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. Go back to what you were doing. It was perfect before. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Go
That
back to what you're
dumpster
doing.
fire. Just cannonball back into the dumpster.
So when I do that, and sometimes it obviously is tongue in cheek. I'm like, listen, I'm sorry that was what felt like a very boring cue, but that start there. Don't worry about what your bar muscle up should look like. You don't know how to hang onto the pull-up bar correct. And they're like, that's it? And I'm like, what do you mean that's it? You don't do it correctly until you fix that. It makes no sense to learn more. That's like saying, hey, coach, I want to snatch 400. Well, I can't put the old bar over my head yet. Well, how are you going to snatch 400? You need to have the foundations there. And when you can explain to them, usually through humor is what I like to use, like being a little sarcastic, but like people understand that like I am trying to demand fundamentals because those are the basics that allow you to do the complex shit. Until you have mastered the basics, it doesn't make any sense for me to teach you anything else. And if I did that, not only would I be not helping you, I would actively be demonstrating that I'm a poor coach. And I think that's one mistake coaches make in affiliate classes. They want to deliver the sexy stuff before they get people to move basically correct. Like I'm thinking about tonight's class with the deadlift. There are people there who are like, I want to deadlift 500. It's like, well, let's get your setup correct first. Your shoulders are 4 inches in front of the barbell. You're going to have that barbell swing away from your shins 1 inch off the floor. That's going to be prohibitive to get in that 400-pound deadlift. Let's fix that first. I'm sorry that you don't like hanging out in the bottom of your deadlift. But guess what? Until you can, you're not going to get there and deadlift very heavy. You're going to be stuck at that same weight forever. So let's fix this basic shit. And I'm sorry I spent the first 5 minutes of class 90 seconds at a time in the bottom of a deadlift setup. That's what you need. That is the medicine you need to get better at this. No, I'm not sorry. You're right. But that is what you need. And that actually, for anyone that does know like what the difference is between a good and a bad affiliate does, that is what a good affiliate does, is they force you to do the same things over and over and over and over until they're better and better and better and better. And you're getting that feedback that you know you're improving upon. It's the gyms that want to rush into things too early, the ones that get the slap tears and the cervical neck vertebrae dislocations. People are doing handstand push-ups and falling on their head. We don't do that around here. And I'm sorry that like there have been times in the past where we've had local competitions where we host one and we have former members here. And I'm like, well, looks like they still haven't figured out how to do those handstand push-ups, huh? And it's almost like a point of pride. Like I would have gotten you there, but you didn't take the advice I gave you at first, and you didn't like that I was tightening the reins on you. And I'm saying, you know what? You can't control your head to the floor. I'm not gonna fucking teach you handstand push-ups. Go over there and do push-ups. Go over there and grab dumbbells. And I will always explain to you why I want you to do that, but you have to be open and honest enough to set your ego aside and say, I see the crumbs in the trail. I am knowing the direction I'm going, and if I stick to it, I'll get there. But it's when people have the ego in the way or think they know better are the ones that, again, they come back to our gym for a local comp, and I'm like, yep, still can do one so-so handstand push-up at a time. Hopefully they don't herniate their discs in their neck, but like, that's on you. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to show you the path. I will never teach you something that is to your detriment. It's always to your benefit. Now, you might not see it at first. That's my job to help explain that to you, but you have to be willing to accept that feedback. And if you're not, like, I'm sorry, there are other gyms in the state. Good luck to you.
I'm going to pause just for 1 second because some of what you're explaining is short-sighted human nature, basically. I don't know that it's actually we want to do the sexy stuff, we want to do the fun stuff. It's people-pleasing. It's fucking natural selection. I'm in front of you right now, and I don't want to deliver information to you that's going to make you, like, unhappy. Problem is, that same person that you fucking placated to for however long is not going to reach their goals, and they're really not going to fucking like you in 2 months or 3 months. You're sacrificing these micro moments of, I'm going to give you what you need, and you're eventually going to come around and see why that's the case. So as a coach, you have to realize that every single person, like, has the natural tendency baked into them to create the situation where you are making the person feel better within a given moment. But if you do that on too short of a timeline, you are going to fuck up that entire equation completely. You have to know that that's baked into you and not fucking listen to it on a short time frame, because your gym, there'll be no fucking results anywhere.
The chickens will come home to roost eventually.
Very true.
I think to just touch on the gymnastics thing, I think what both of you guys were saying is, like, at the end of the day, with essentially every CrossFit movement, short of like the super nuanced things we see at the CrossFit Games or something like that occasionally, and even those, they all have the same foundational kind of fundamentals to them. Every time you go to lift a barbell, it's either a squat, a hinge, a lunge, or a press, right? And there are some basic tenets, kind of core tenets that go along with every single one of those things. The difference is which direction the barbell moves and like which muscles are doing the primary movement. But aside from that, it's all, a core to extremity movement. It requires midline control, et cetera, et cetera. And the same thing applies to the gymnastics movements. It's like whether you're somebody who's just getting their first like kipping knee raise or somebody who's trying to get a set of 10 muscle ups, turns out being proficient at going from the hollow to the arch position back and forth a bunch of times is like 90% of the equation. Then when we start talking about things like, well, I can't get a kipping pull up. It's like, well, that opens up the avenue for, well, it turns out a gymnastics movement is a strength to body weight ratio. So we can either get your muscles really, really strong, or more often when we're talking to an affiliate athlete who wants to get a gymnastics movement, we have the conversation of like, what's the diet?
Down.
What's the nutrition look like? I want you to get to a point where you have a much higher proportion of lean body mass versus, being heavy and deciding like, oh, I'm just going to get super strong to move the current frame that I have, rather than like, hey, what's maybe a more of a healthier long-term solution of like, well, like maybe this is a time to address my nutrition so that I can get to a body weight that, one, like I'm proud of, and two, that I'm a more functional human being. I can do these movements, but we can still apply all of the fundamentals to the gymnastics movement. As long as I can get somebody going from that hollow to arch, and like Drew said, like 95% of people who wander in off the street to your gym are probably able to hang from a pull-up bar and can start to do something that looks like a kip, right? And we've now determined that this athlete has the body awareness and ability to go from these two massively foundational positions of the hollow and arch, and then it turns out, get yourself upside down, maintain a hollow body position. You want to get better at toes to bar, hollow arch, hollow arch. You want to get the muscle up, hollow arch, hollow arch. Like all of them there, we can break every single movement down into like a small handful or two handfuls of like just foundational movement patterns. And then we build from that position. But expound out from that position. Yeah, but
Is that a word?
we can. I think so.
It is a
Expound.
word. I don't know if it was used right.
Expound.
Yeah, I don't think you
Plus-
need to add the out. I think that might be implied.
Yeah, expand.
It's funny you say that, Hunter, because like again, going back to the coaches survey that I gave them about, do you feel comfortable teaching X, Y, and Z? And one of the things was like bar muscle ups and handstand walking, and it's like how to teach these things. And you just gave me a really good bit of information there that I've definitely thought of before, but I was thinking about like what is the easiest way to convey this information. All the coaches that work at the gym have passed the level 1. They've hopefully seen all the 9 foundational movements. They all have certain principles that all tie to them and correlate from movement to movement to movement, because you can kind of think of like the air squat is the foundation for a front squat, which is a foundation for the overhead squat. And someone's like, hey, I want to get better at I want to teach people how to handstand walk better. And it's like, well, then go look at the things that make shoulder press better. And they're going to be like, what? It's like, go look at the things that make a shoulder press better. Tell me which one of those things in the shoulder press, if you didn't think about trying to do them when you're upside down in a handstand, wouldn't benefit you. Or like what you said a minute ago, like, hey, I want to teach people how to get bar muscle ups. All right, well, can they hang from the rig? Can they get into a strong hollow position? They get into a strong arch position. Can they go back and forth between those positions? And then can they create them in the pull-up bar? Now, if they can do the hang, they can create both of those shapes and they can do that dynamically, but they can't do a bar muscle up yet. What's probably missing? What you said a second ago. They probably have not enough strength relative to their body mass. That's an opportunity to say, hey, you either need the drills to teach the bar muscle up once you've kind of met those prerequisite skills of hollow arch, and then hanging. And then you need some drills on teach you how to like what the shapes you need to create to get up and over the pull-up bar. But for a lot of athletes, it's not, they don't know how to do those things, or they're not able to practice those things. Like you physically weigh too much currently, and we need to get your strength up, and we have a conversation about diet and nutrition, because that's what's going to get you this goal. If that's really important to you, I'm going to give you the path there. I'm not going to tell you the path's immediate. And part of my job here is to deliver a key foundational to your like just growth as a human being, and realize that instant gratification is not real. And if it is real, it wasn't gratifying because it wasn't really worth doing. So I'm here to tell you that like I can get you a bar muscle up. I'm not going to tell you how fast it's going to happen, because some of that's on you. You need to come here consistently. You need to pay attention to how you eat, and you need to be coachable when you're in class. If you can do those 3 things and you stick here long enough, I will get you a bar muscle up, but it's going to take some time, and everyone's starting line is different. Some of you are, if it's a 100-meter race, some of you are starting on the 90-meter mark and have to go 10 meters to get to the bar muscle up. Some of you are starting back at your house and have to run a 400 to get to the starting line before you start the 100-meter race. Like, you have to realize that everybody's at different starting points, and it's our job to help explain where you currently are and the necessary steps to get you there. And if the person that's in front of you is struggling to understand that, it's your job as the coach to help them see, I think it's like to see the trees through the forest, like to see that they can get there. But there's a lot of noise and it's going to take some time, but it's I don't know if I got that back. It's probably
the forest for the trees.
Why don't you like a
We
tree
got
and
the
get the fuck
idea.
out of here? Isn't that the expression?
Don't.
But
kick a
anyways,
gift
like
horse
our
in the
job,
teeth.
yeah, exactly. Our job is to help explain that journey to them so they understand that like, hey, I see what you want. I understand the frustration, but I'm here to tell you that no one has ever lost cause. There's always going to be growth in every single human being. You just have to realize that like not everyone's going to get there at the same speed, and you have to ignore everybody else and focus on you when it comes time to get better at something. Because if you pay attention to them, that is energy robbing you of the ability to focus on you, which is going to actually help you move the needle and move forward.
The final initial, M, stands for monostructural conditioning.
Oh yeah.
It's a brand of intensity that everyone understands. It will not be lost on you no matter what you try to accomplish when you come into the gym. It is, to me, the sort of grounds to educate people on pacing and what pacing actually feels like. Because when we extend into the double under, the wall ball, the burpee, we don't get told by an electronic device that we are going too fast, or that we are going too slow, or that we've, sort of hit our stride. And keeping that as part of a CrossFit affiliate program to me is incredibly important, because if we don't get the opportunity as often at the affiliate level to have people work on their pacing and learn to know themselves and their body, this is one place where they can go, no matter whether it's, all the way down to 200-meter rows or all the way up to a long distance thing. Like, you're going to get an average spit out the other side that's going to tell you something about how fast you went or how slow you went versus how fast or slow you should have actually gone within the workout. So amazing adaptations, both physically and mentally, but also the kind of thing that can educate you on a level that will extrapolate out to how am I going to think about these weightlifting and gymnastics movements within a long Metcon, because I need to know what it feels like to be, over the line, behind the line, all that stuff.
For there might not be more bang, like a class with more bang for your buck. I'll leave that there. The point for me when I think about the cardio day as an affiliate coach is energy system day. It's energy system training, and the machines enable us to get every single athlete feeling a very similar way. Step overs and chest to bar pull-ups from yesterday. I can do a really good job scaling and modifying for everybody, but at the end of the day, if there's 12 people in class, there's probably 8 or 10 different versions of this workout happening. And the kind of control that I have over how an athlete is feeling or should be feeling, or how hard they're going, what their movement quality, all that stuff, there are a lot more variables that are just a little bit more difficult to control. When we have a cardio day, it's so much easier to communicate to an athlete, I want you to go as hard as you can every single time that you get on the assault bike. That's all I want. That's all I want you to do. And that is that's all the information that needs to be communicated. I don't need to communicate that we are training our phosphocreatine high power output system while also, if one round of this buries you, it turns out you don't have very good aerobic functioning, or we need to also improve your capacity to recover. We need to improve your long, slow engine, whatever it is, a lot of the stuff that we talk to competitors about. But for an affiliate athlete, it's today I need you to go as hard as humanly possible every single time it's your turn to go. Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, hey, we're going to move for 20 continuous minutes here on various machines. I want you to have a very similar level of effort across all of this. And with about 5 minutes to go, you should wish that you were about to be done, but you still have 5 more minutes to go. It's a much easier way to communicate how this is supposed to feel for an athlete. And when we remove the challenges of either a high-skill gymnastics movement, a barbell loading, a complex movement, etc., and we just have, whether it's a machine or on occasion, maybe it's a double under or a burpee or a very low skill, low barrier to entry type movement, we can really ensure that every single athlete in that class gets the workout that is relatively correct for them. And like Drew said, for your more advanced athletes in class, this is an opportunity to experiment and kind of assess your ability to pace something correctly based on the objective metrics you see on the rower monitor, on the ski monitor, on the assault bike monitor, whatever it is. But for me, the cardio day, that's just such a necessary component to an effective class, because it guarantees that every single person who comes in the door that day almost guarantees that they're going to get the workout that we wanted them to. And even if they miss the mark in one direction or another, it certainly won't be a lost, a waste of energy.
I believe it is step 2 of 4 on the path to enlightenment. And I will expand upon that as we continue to move through. But I think the version of you as a coach, Hunter, where you're levitating above the rig in lotus pose with your hands out is what you just described, but as a triplet. Everyone in class has the movement, the skill. They can move the barbell in the way that they're supposed to, even if it is like I'm looking at, again, this is all part of the story that is told through this phase 4 program. So we just talked about the monostructural, but then you go to the next week and you have what is step 3, which is AMRAP 7 minutes, 7 box jump overs, 7 sumo deadlift high pulls. You are being asked to move within a way that is going to honestly feel kind of similar to a 2K row every once in a while. Yeah. It's built in there, it's baked in there, but you have to know that, pulling your knees up is a lot easier than actually jumping 24 inches up onto that box. You have to know that as you extend up through your feet and your knees extend and your hips extend, that weight's going to come flying up versus if you just do a deadlift and then a strict high pull and then a uncontrolled negative where you lose a few vertebrae along the way. That's not going to go so well. But it's a low risk, low stakes version of something to me that's very similar. But we do these things separately so that when you do arrive here and the stakes are just a little bit higher, because you do have to think about transitions and how much energy is the high pull taking me versus the box jump over itself. And like, did my heart rate get to that place that I was hoping it wouldn't get to until 6 minutes into this workout, 1 minute into this workout, and that sort of thing. But I love how we are funneling down towards these things, and they rotate back and forth to, okay, you get to do it on machines. You get to rotate with friends for tricking you into thinking it's a partner workout. And the next week you're all on your own, but it's only 7 minutes and the movements are pretty basic. Then we're going to throw you right back on those machines the following week. But as we progress through this, we're always going to restart. We're always going to revisit so that we can refine no matter where you're at in your journey. But this feels to me like couple extra ingredients here. Like, let's put an M and a G together, or a W and a G, or whatever it is, and go back and see, like, how can we execute without it being whatever muscle up squat snatch.
Yeah, again, going back to kind of foundational knowledge for a coach, and hopefully you're communicating this to some degree to the athlete, like, consider the theoretical development of an athlete. Like, you've got nutrition at the foundation, and that oftentimes gets glossed over just because of the nature of the 60-minute class, where it's like, hey, I'm here for 60 minutes of fitness, and okay, we'll talk about the nutrition stuff, but the coach isn't in your kitchen telling you don't use that seed oil because it's going to kill you with the omega-6s. But in a class environment, the next step up, the next rung on that ladder is the metabolic conditioning. And like you just alluded to, there are a lot of, we can do a weightlifting, monostructural, and gymnastics movement in this beautiful triplet. But when we're talking about just a single machine or two machines or three components with very low barrier to entry, low skill, we can really kind of dial in exactly how we want an athlete to feel. We can apply some of the, again, old school CrossFit. Most of your workouts should be, interval work on a machine, run, row, bike, swim, hard, long and fast, or hard and fast, occasionally go long. All of those sorts of principles kind of can really come to the surface and be applied in real time on these cardio days where, a 3-minute AMRAP for Sherburai, we might look at that and be like, oh, fuck, like, this is going to be so fucking miserable because we have the tenure and the capacity and the experience to know exactly what is supposed to happen in this one single 3-minute AMRAP, whereas
it's going to be easy and then you're going to be sick for 45 minutes after.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas a beginner just might not be enough time for the coach to explain to that athlete, like, this is how it's supposed to go, this is how it's supposed to feel. And then even then, that beginner might not have the physical capacity to go hard enough to get the stimulus that we're after, just by nature of their current fitness level. And that can be like, when we program those really short workouts, we try to consider that as much as possible, because for a lot of folks, that's the only time they get their heart rate up during the day. So we need to be really, really dialed in with how we program extremely short, high intensity workouts so that everybody gets the most out of it. The cardio day really reduces the difficulty level of that and increases the probability that every single person is going to get a gnarly workout, regardless of what that actually means in practice for the athlete.
What the nugget of gold there is too, for anyone that's a little bit confused, and understanding like what this could mean for those days that are M and G G and W and not M, meaning we got more of the weightlifting and more of the gymnastics as opposed to the monostructural. I've had the opportunity to think about this more because recently we've had a couple of people who have signed up at the Wyndham location. We've got someone who's got a below the knee amputation. We have someone who had strokes in the past. We have some people who are, considerably overweight, and bless their hearts, they decided to come in and check out what CrossFit was about. And some of the coaches are, at first like, oh man, how am I going to help this person get better at the gym? And I'm like, listen, if you can just keep them coming in and moving for 60 minutes, it doesn't matter if you had them fucking take the PVC pipe and whip it around their head for an hour straight. Like, that's exercise for them. That is getting them moving. That is a perfect amount of movement for them. So basically the only thing you could
That would
do
kick
wrong
my
for these
ass.
folks,
Jeez.
the only thing you could really do wrong for these folks is fuck them up with way too much intensity early on. You were just trying to give them just enough that they feel like they did something and it was worth their time coming in, and that they want to come in tomorrow because they had a good experience, whether that was the social element or the right workout, or, you know, you gave them a skill that was so low level that they felt that they had success and that gave them self-esteem to the point where they want to come back. That is the huge win here. And then that just gets extrapolated outward depending on the person's capacity and ability. Like, the goal with a good CrossFit class is to give them enough of a dose they feel like they got something from class, and that doesn't always mean muscles burning or high heart rate. Sometimes it's you practiced a skill for 30 minutes and that was the entire class for you, but you gave them some value there. You made them feel better about themselves because they worked on something and got better at it, and then they have that desire to come back in because there's a social element, a good workout element, and a self-esteem thing where they probably heard good job for the first time all day. Those things are huge and kind of like our second nature once the CrossFit has kind of established what good nutrition is. Should be kind of the goal for everybody. And then you can get a little bit more complicated and start teaching the fun stuff like, hey, here's how you get your bar muscle up linked, and this is how you do a snatch.
All right. The final boss, the fourth step in the 4 steps to enlightenment as a CrossFit coach, is the Friday open style workouts. What I noticed the first time that I went through this phase, as you guys were writing it, that I loved the most was everything that we've talked about in this episode resets and funnels back to an open workout for all 7 weeks. You get an opportunity to go after each of the things that we have just talked about and then end up back at that style of workout. And that's the style of workout that reminds us every single year, no matter how much we've overcorrected or overcomplicated coaching and programming, that you cannot hide from double unders and power snatches and wall balls and rowing. You just can't hide from that stuff. So like within that same week, I see a workout with burpees, chest to bar pull-ups, and overhead squats. Not the most complicated thing in the world, but also not something where, Hunter, like you said, with the monostructural, you can just go in and you know that it's going to be sort of simple to deliver this to every single person. There's certainly a variation that's going to be able to be delivered to every single person. But just the idea of, for 7 weeks, we're going to touch on these things for 4 days. We're going to lead you up to it, and then here you go. And you get an opportunity, and it's just, week 1, this is how I felt. You know, I gave it hell, but my strategy was absolute trash. Week 2, you buy in a little bit more to listening to the whiteboard brief when they're like, hey, if you row hard here, you're dumb. Like, if you want the best score, like, this is a bad idea. And you're like, you know what? I didn't listen to you last week, and everyone that I'm fitter than beat me within this workout. So maybe I should probably listen. And that is something that I think a lot of athletes, even at the affiliate level, if they do care about the open, can wrap their mind around. Like, give me 5 days. Give me 5 days a week where you come in, we're going to lift some weights, we're going to work on your gymnastics, we're going to make sure you breathe super heavy, and then at the end of the week, we're going to see how it all comes together, and we're just going to iterate week after week. I love it.
Yeah, I think the open is, especially for maybe the competitive CrossFitter listening or the aspiring competitor, the open is the reminder that when you finished, say, the open or quarterfinals last year, and what you took out of it was, man, if I wish I could have hit 10 more pounds on that max lift, or if only I had my muscle ups, like, this workout would have gone so much better. The open is a reminder that, like, we want to know, we want to improve your fitness. I want you to get those high skill movements. I want you to be able to lift and do the sexy, you know, a beautiful heavy squat snatch where you sneak under the bar and people cheer because you're standing it up out of the bottom. Like, I want that for you. But at the end of the day, that is not the key to long-term fitness, right? It's the burpees, the overhead squat, the you know, maybe the chest to bar pull up, or the, you know, it's the double unders and the rowing and stuff like that. The workouts that leave people flat on the floor is a workout like 15.1, like wall balls and rowing. Like it wasn't power snatches and bar muscle ups, because everybody finds themselves in a different feeling and in a different spot in a style of workout like that. But the beauty of the open workouts is that for at least, more than likely at least 2 of those weeks, it's going to be painfully accessible to everybody, in that like the only limitation is just how fit you got yourself over the last year and how many times you can rotate through these 3 movements for 20 minutes, or just how quickly you can get through this 3-round conditioning piece is a true kind of test of fitness that we want to see from athletes. We want you to have those high skill gymnastics. I want you to hit that PR lift after a Metcon when you just buried yourself. But at the end of the day, like I see walking lunges and dumbbell snatches, and I'm
Enjoy
like,
that one.
and that I see sure put that gem, like unweighted walking lunges and alternating dumbbell snatches. And we got athletes who are worried about their strict deficit weighted handstand push-up. It's like, I'm glad you worked on that, but I really want to see how quickly you can do these lunges and dumbbell snatches, and like that's what we're after.
And you might be in the camp where like my gym doesn't care about the
That
open.
workout sucks, sure. Fuck
You're
you.
welcome. I know that workout does suck. I like it though. Biased, but you might be in the camp of that. You're like, why do I care about the open? My gym doesn't care about that. We have people who do it, but it's not a big deal. And unfortunately, I think that's just a lack of education on the gym's part and the coach's part to explain the value to their members. So for anyone that's not familiar, hasn't heard this rant before, I'm going to go on it for like 2 minutes. If you don't use the open as a benchmark of how your gym is doing, meaning you do not see people who progress year after year after year, you are fucking up. You are fucking up. You are not using something that could be extremely valuable to you as a metric for how your gym is performing. Now, of course, people are going to go up and down year after year, but as a general trend, members who have been at your gym long enough should theoretically do better at the open every single year, because they are coming to your gym consistently. They are getting coaching on the movements that are found within the open, and that your programming is sufficient enough that it actually does move the needle for athletes. Now, again, you might have athletes who are like, I don't care about the open, but you do care about something because you came here for a reason. There's some reason that brought you in here. So whether you're trying to avoid diabetes, or you want to live longer, you want to play with your grandkids. But guess what? You know what the best correlate is to being good at any one of those things is improving your fitness. So if you come here and you care about how you do in the open, and you see yourself progressing year after year, you've hedged your bets, and you've gotten yourself healthier to the point where now you can play with your grandkids when you're 90, or you can be at your daughter's wedding, or you can do whatever fucking thing that you want to do outside the gym. So if you're someone who's like, you know what, I don't really take that CrossFit stuff super seriously. I enjoy going to my CrossFit gym, and that's good enough for me. And why should I care about the open? That is the reason right there. If you get better at performing within the open, you are getting fitter, which means you can experience your life to the fullest, which is something I explain to all the beginners when they walk into the gym. I'm like, it's awesome you found us, and if you love CrossFit, I can make you really good at CrossFit. But guess what? I'm not here to make you really good at CrossFit. I'm here to make you really, really healthy. And we use CrossFit as a correlate to your health. The better you get at CrossFit, the better and the more healthy you are, the better you can experience your life to the fullest. And that is why you should care about improving your fitness, and why you should care about getting better at your air squat, and why you want to make sure that every time you do a squat, you're below parallel. It's because you want to see progression across time. And if you do those things, you'll be healthier and happier, and you'll get to experience your life to the fullest. So for anyone that hasn't done this before, if you're not looking at how your gym does in the open, and how some of your stalwart members who come in day after day, the regulars that come in, if you don't see that they're improving, it might be time to have a hard conversation with yourself about, hey, I need to figure out whether it's my programming is the issue, my coaching is the issue, or is it a community issue where people don't care enough, and I haven't explained to them why they need to care about this stuff and what that could actually do for your affiliate, and which obviously helps your members, but also helps your business and make sure you can put food on your table.
I think it's not signing up for the open to me is another version of a short-sighted flaw in human nature. People don't dare to compare themselves to other people because we're supposed to compete with one another, not realizing that if you don't measure it and you don't pay attention to it, and you do feel like you want to be X compared to another person, you're not going to be able to do it. I think people are just scared that, like, I'm going to be this number on the leaderboard, and the only thing about it is there's only one person that sits at the top of the leaderboard, right? So everyone else is like, well, but yes. Yes. You beat him last year, actually, didn't you? Did you finally beat him last year? Fluke?
Flu game.
That's how I see that. I think delivering that information to people with like knowing that this is going to feel uncomfortable to you from a comparison to other people's standpoint and just fucking do it anyways is a huge part of the battle. Last but not least, Team Misfit Programming has a competitor extra. We are Misfit Athletics. Some people walk into this building expecting Misfit Athletics and not Misfit Gym Portland. And while they get Misfit Gym Portland, like they get that experience to a T, we do afford opportunities to bridge that gap. And we actually have a class here that's an hour and a half long that follows along with the competitor extra. But I think this time of year, being the kind of gym that will go the extra mile and copy and paste this onto a piece of paper and stick it to your whiteboard at the beginning of the week and letting your members cherry pick what their extra is if they're not following it every single day is also another bridge to Misfit Athletics. There is a list that I keep track of movements that continue to come up in the open, quarterfinals, semifinals, games, team competitions, all that good stuff. If we look at the open, we have 4 monostructural movements that have come up 2 to 5 times in the last 5 years. We have 4 weightlifting movements total that have come up more than once in the last 5 years. We have 4 pulling gymnastics movements, and we have 3 pressing gymnastics movements. That's it. That's the whole list. That is the entire list. And if we just use the monostructural as an example, double unders, rowing wall balls, and bar facing burpees are coming up more often than not, 60 to 100% of the time. You will get better at double unders, rowing, wall balls, and burpees by doing any of those things on a regular basis. And guess what? They are sprinkled in throughout the program. But what happens is we only get to see these people 2 to 4, 2 to 5 times a week, right? So like checking off this list can be super challenging. So that competitor extra, guess what? The movements that are not present within the program that are going to get you better at competing in the open and at quarterfinals are down in that competitor extra. We didn't deadlift this week. Guess what? We're deadlifting down there. We didn't squat. We didn't snatch. We didn't clean. We didn't do muscle ups. We didn't have rowing intervals. That stuff is what makes up that program. And it's just one of those things where some people, like some of our people that come to the 90-minute class just want an extra dose. Like has nothing to do with the open, has nothing to do with quarterfinals, and that's fine. But for those people that are trying to make that transition, this is the time of year where you can say, hey, why don't we work on your chest to bar for at least 7 of the 52 weeks that you said you were going to work on them? They're going to be present. They're going to be in there. We're going to do them under fatigue. We're going to be doing them on their own. We're going to be doing them. You could be doing them in open gym with the extra that's in there. But all of this stuff is going to be present. So again, I would say if you have the opportunity to teach the 90-minute class, I think it's a pretty cool thing to have. It's a bit of a luxury, I would say. And then if not, I think like grab all 5 or 6 of the competitor extras, again, copy and paste, put them into a Google Sheet, a Google Doc, print that baby out and slap it on the whiteboard and just say, we've got open gym times, maybe you have a gap between classes. Here are the things that we suggest you work on to supplement your program, which I think would go a long ways with a lot of members.
Yeah, for those members who are maybe still struggling to finally understand the value in like, hey, I'm going to have you come in and work on like 5 sets of toes to bar, and then we're going to do some rowing intervals. Like that sounds like a shitty day to me. I like weightlifting. Why am I doing this? It can give them the opportunity to be in the gym more and give them maybe that thing that will help keep the fire burning long enough for them to eventually buy into why that's valuable to get better at the toes to bar and the rowing intervals. Now, am I saying that you should let your athletes cherry pick for all time? No, I'm not saying that. But again, it's a good sign if your people want to be around you. And if you give them opportunity to have structured work that's actually going to move the needle in the direction that we talked about, using the open as a benchmark for what your athlete's fitness level is, and then using that benchmark to then be like, hey, our programming is working and we're getting people healthier, which means we're doing our job to begin with, then it's a valuable thing. You just have to understand that like any tool can be used in the correct manner or the incorrect manner. It's on you to help the athlete understand how to use said tool. And that's really your job. So if you're not familiar with that or you don't know how to do it on your own, that's why you'd come to someone like us and be like, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes time to get my athletes better at the open, but I heard that's a good thing I should do. Check out teammisfit.com, ask us questions, head up Discord, use us as a resource. Because again, we have a lot of experience and, we can get on crazy tangents or diatribes when we're on this podcast, but that's because the three of us really like it. And I know Ted just has to sit there and listen, and I'm sure he likes it to an extent, but I don't know if he's got 2 cents when it comes to like giving up an opinion on this, but we would love to talk to you about it. So reach out. I mean, I would love to have that conversation. What was nice is a few weeks back, some member had bought her affiliate owner's gym, and she sent us an email and asked if she could hop on a call, and kind of gave her the nuts and bolts of what we do here. And I could tell within a 3-minute conversation that she was, cut from the same cloth and want to have these conversations. And she and I have been texting a little bit here and back and forth. And it's just nice to have that conversation with somebody who's as invested in us. And we'd love to talk about this stuff. So like lean into that. If you don't feel comfortable with yourself, ask us questions. We can give you resources. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is to give a coach a piece of information to digest and then say, hey, after you read that and thought about it, come back to me. Let's talk about it. Because I like to nerd out on it. And I like to see you get better at that. I like to see you be more confident on the floor. But that only happens because you were brave enough to ask and you wanted to have that interaction. We need to have those interactions to grow. And that's something I think we have a lot of value to offer to the community that I think is still, drastically being underutilized.
I think that might be your final thoughts. I'm going to let you have that. Hunter, you're up.
I think because this phase for affiliates doesn't have a lot of times we get to hang our coaches, members, whatever, gym gets hangs their hat on the fact that we've got a test week and a retest week. We've got a 1 rep max lift, and then we're gonna do that lift every single week, and then we're gonna retest it, and that way your members can see their work put in over the last 7 weeks. That is, I'll give you guys an insight. That is a thing that we use to kind of keep athletes engaged, keep coaches engaged, and then also just make sure that we are actually progressing these movements and lifts in a focused way that doesn't necessarily, that allows us to pay attention to them for a short period of time, but doesn't necessarily mean, hey, we're not going to spend an entire year on the back squat. We're going to make sure that these things get rotated through kind of the programming on a consistent basis so that by this time of year, we can actually put all of the things that we've been working on since, let's say, April into place, and athletes get to see like, hey, what has an entire year of dedicated, consistency and hard work done for my fitness? And like Sherb alluded to, leveraging the fact that the CrossFit Open is maybe the most CrossFit Open and benchmark workouts are your most objective metrics for long-term success in your members when it comes to their fitness and their health. So while this phase doesn't have a focused lift and a focused gymnastics, that's ultimately that's not what CrossFit is about. CrossFit is about ensuring that we are fit in all kind of modalities throughout as much of the year as possible. Our programming methodology, we just decide to use the CrossFit Open as kind of the end, and then the subsequent the end of one training year and the beginning of the next. But ultimately, it's all the same thing. It's all part of the same goal of this, we want you to have members who have been at your gym for 10 years. We have some of those members. We've got a small number of members who have been at the gym for over a decade, and they're still continuing to get fit because they're consistent, because they come in, because they believe in the programming. They've listened to the coaches, and our coaches have done an excellent job in relaying why it is they should continue to come back, and their progress has made them want to come back. Not going to take away from the athlete. If you come in and are consistent, and like Sherb said, you pay attention, you scale appropriately and whatnot, and you do that in such a way that allows you to come to the gym 4 or 5 times a week for years at a time, there's no possible chance that scenario occurs and that you're not getting fitter and healthier along the way. So leverage this time of year as an opportunity to kind of round out the full training year, knowing that we're just going to get restarted here again soon with the same constantly varied functional movements at high intensity for the next year.
So I'm writing semifinals prep at the exact same time that I am reviewing Team Misfit Phase 4. And it feels, when something like that happens, it feels like the stars align to remind you what it is we do, what we are asking of the athletes, what it takes to be better at these things. And I won't say that you have to do what we do, you have to be very good at creating your own puzzle that's almost unsolvable and then solving it. There is a lot of work in moving pieces around and thinking that one thing has happened the whole phase, and then there's just a few things that send it askew, and it feels like you got to start over. I don't want to downplay how challenging it is to put all the pieces together in the right way, but the pieces themselves in a vacuum need to resemble something that gets you stronger, gets you a better work capacity, gets you more skilled, pushes the envelope, overreaches you on your, gymnastics, that sort of thing. So being able to read this and know, like, if I just have that moment of like, this is going to get people really fucking fit because I know how good the program is and how good our staff is here, then the same concepts and the same ideas just cranked up a little bit within semifinals prep is going to do the same thing. And I love that kind of reminder. I love something that brings me back down. I love super high level athlete coming in and realizing that their fundamental movement patterns aren't right and what could happen downstream when you go in and fix those and treat it just like you would an affiliate class. So, having this program come across my desk as I'm fucking in mad scientist mode and my 60 square feet of whiteboards in my office are covered in God knows what, like, it is an excellent reminder that like brings me back to sure, fuck you, Jesus.
I don't want to know what your whiteboards are covered in. Gross, dude. This is a children's podcast.
Don't worry. It's just numbers and letters. I'm showing the people.
All right. Glad we clarified that.
Ted, is that approved video content? Was that good stuff?
Sure, it's fine.
We're gonna hack the mainframe, pause it, zoom in, break down the mad scientist.
It's just gonna make you cry. That's all it's gonna do. It tells you to row really fast and run really hard.
Write that?
And that's the sprint intervals. You'll be excited that those are coming back up. So yeah, teammisfit.com is where you're gonna find the programming that we've been talking about here. The great thing, too, is on an individual level, anytime any of us start to overcorrect and then get pulled back into class, we immediately see the benefits of this training is more fun. I get fitter. I'm a bit more skilled. I'm not burnt out on like, okay, here we go, 99th hour of Maffetone rowing. Like, we get pulled back into the class and the program in the same way as athletes as we do as coaches and programmers.
Confirmed.
Did we do it?
That's it.
Did it.
Got to take a nap.
For real.
Got on a real fucking rampage. Don't make me pull out the CrossFit Journal, start reading scripture to you fucks. I don't care.
I know I could get you guys fired up. That's just too easy. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. And thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit, sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete code. You save money. The athletes get money for their CrossFit Games journey. MisfitAthletics.com for your individual programming needs, and TeamMisfit.com for everything that we just spent about 2 hours talking about. If you made it to this point in the episode past the ads, send me a DM in Discord. We will send you some free Misfit Gym gear.
What's the code? How are they going to prove that they made it here?
They just have to know that this happened. First 5 people to tell me that they know what I know. Give me the shirt. Give me the emoji. Please send me an eggplant emoji if you liked what you saw. That was covering all of my walls. Okay, see you next week.